Hey everyone, welcome to day one training, day one of the 4-day sugar detox. I was planning on doing this video live, but I realized I had so many visuals that I wanted to screen share, and you can't do that on Facebook Live. And so if you have questions, if you're following along, just drop them in the comments. I will come back and answer them. I won't be able to answer them live, but I wanted to give you guys the visuals because I think it just helps so much when we're talking about more scientific topics. And I really am going to dive into a little bit of like the physiology and some more deeper topics today. And I hope you guys like that. So anyways, I needed to do some visuals, and that's what we're going to be able to do now. So today I am talking about the first of the 3 secrets to squashing your sugar cravings. So the 3 different areas are food, habits, and supplements. So we're going to talk about all 3 of those this week. Today, we're going to talk about food. And then Tammy is talking about habits over the next 2 days. And then on Thursday, I will be coming back and I will be doing a live on supplements. And if like I talked about in my first video, the role supplements play, where they come in, and some specific supplements that are targeted at blood sugar balance and cravings overall. So if you haven't already watched the video that I recorded yesterday, you need to go back and watch that. You have to watch that to understand what you're doing in the challenge this week. These trainings are complementary to what we're doing in the challenge, but if you're actually wanting to know like, hey, what should I be doing today and on a daily basis, you need to go watch the training I did yesterday in the group. That is about a 12-minute long video, and it tells you exactly what you need to know for the rest of the next 4 days. And so that's talking about the no extra processed or added sugars or carbs. We are doing only whole food sources of carbs and sugar this week. That means no artificial sweeteners as well, no stevia, erythritol, things like that. The reason being, those products are anywhere from like 200 to 1,000 times sweeter than natural sugar. And the way to retrain your taste buds and the way to retrain your cravings is to go back to regular sources of sugar, real sources of sweetness and sugar, not these hyper inflated versions of sugar. So no artificial sweeteners at all, no added sugars, no processed products. We are doing whole food sources of carbs this week, like sweet potatoes, like whole grains, like legumes, chickpeas, beans. We're doing all that fun stuff. There's a great chart in the Facebook group explaining a little bit more, but please go watch that video because today's training is not about the specifics of the challenge. We're going to dive into one of the 3 secrets. So today we're talking about food. So that might be the very obvious topic, but there's so many different pieces of nutrition and physiology that go into sugar and cravings. So we're going to start there. So there's 3, and so we have 3 different secrets, which is the food, habits, and supplements. But then I'm breaking down today's topic into 3 areas as well. I wish I had like a whiteboard. I was trying to find like an online whiteboard, because I feel like it's so much easier to see things. But essentially we have those 3 things. And then under the category of, or the umbrella of food, we're breaking down into 3 smaller subcategories as well. So those subcategories are blood sugar regulation, protein, fat, and fiber, and nutrient deficiencies that can cause cravings. So I'm going to go into those. I'm going to try to keep today's training under like 15 minutes, but we'll see how I go. Sometimes I just get really into the education and training part, and I love it. So I have my notes pulled up here, and I'm going to check back on those from time to time if you see me switching back and forth. But let's talk about the first thing. Let's talk about blood sugar regulation. So blood sugar regulation, you've probably heard about a lot. If you're one of my clients, which some of y'all are in the program, you know I harp on this all the time, but blood sugar regulation is key, because when our blood sugar is out of whack, that's when we start to have all kinds of cravings and all kinds of symptoms. So blood sugar is really the foundation. If there's one thing you take away from what can I do to improve my cravings, it is blood sugar, in terms of the foods in terms of consistency with the foods you're eating, and the consistency of just eating in general. Because if you're skipping meals, if you're not having breakfast, if you're going 8 hours between lunch and dinner, your poor body is going to start dropping the blood sugar a lot. So we want to have consistent meals, and then within those meals, we want to have consistency with our protein, fat, and carbs, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So let me start sharing my screen, start showing you guys some of these visuals. Okay, so when we're talking about blood sugar, this is the chart that I love to pull up. You can find it on Google. I just pulled up one here, but blood sugar is ideally between 80 and 120. That's like a healthy range, especially it's going to go up to like 120 if you've been eating, going to drop down to like 80 if you haven't been eating lately. So we want to see between 80 and 120. If you're like, hey, I have no idea where I'm at, that's actually fairly common. We don't typically, unless you have like a continuous glucose monitor or you check your blood sugar regularly or you had recent labs, you probably don't know where you're at. So I would actually recommend, if you are willing to do it, to actually go get a glucometer. I would think this would be really interesting data for you to get. And I know it's annoying or uncomfortable to prick your finger, but you don't have to do it for long. You can just do it for a short period of time and get some data. But if you are willing to go get a glucometer, they're like $15 to $30 at a drugstore, and test your blood sugar. This would be a really great starting point to see where you're at, because if you're, as you can see, if you're on either side of these boundaries here, then you're going to start experiencing unwanted symptoms and cravings. So let's look at what happens when you eat too little. So either you eat too little, you're skipping meals, you're restricting calories, something like that. It also says exercising on an empty stomach. You can exercise on an empty stomach. It takes some time to adapt, but say like you just forgot to eat and then you went to work out and that's not normally what you do, then that's definitely where we're going to have some low blood sugar. So blood sugar drops under 80. And then this is what happens. The body burns muscle, holds on to fat, energy crashes, and look, cravings increase. Because guess what? Your body's like, it's smart. It's like, hey, my blood sugar is really low. What's a quick fix? What's a quick energy source? Hey, sugar's a really quick fix. I'm going to start like craving some sugar so I can get a quick fix and get my blood sugar back up. Your body is really smart like that. So we definitely don't want to be in this zone. So we want to stay in between 80 and 120. Again, a glucometer, really cheap, really interesting data. You would take two different reads during the day. You would do one as soon as you wake up. That would be your fasting. And then you do one 2 hours after a meal. That's called your postprandial. So that would be really great data. You could do that maybe a couple days and just see where you're at and start seeing, hey, am I in this range or not? Because if I'm not, then you're either down here or we're up here. So up here means too many calories, too many carbs, your blood sugar spikes, and then you're going to store fat. No one wants that. So we want to be in this nice, healthy zone where the body is burning fat, protecting lean muscle, eliminating cravings, and increasing energy. So that's part one, is having good blood sugar. I really encourage you to go get that glucometer, or maybe you have recent blood working. You can see what your fasting was there. And so maybe if you're going to the doctor anytime soon, ask them to take a look at your results. Sometimes you don't even get your results. They just call you and say everything's good. So make sure you see your results. And also, if you can ask for a fasting insulin, that's a great lab to look at as well, because sometimes we see a little bit more going on with insulin before we see blood sugar really being dysregulated. Sometimes we see that insulin starting to have trouble keeping up before we see something like an A1C or a fasted glucose going off. So that's number one, having good blood sugar. So that means we're not skipping meals. We are eating every few hours. That means snacks. That means not skipping breakfast. And then that bleeds into my next part, which is the actual content, the actual makeup of your meals. We want there to be a good balance there too. So what that looks like is 3 different things that are going to help you have a good balanced meal. That's going to be protein, fat, and fiber. Protein, fat, fiber. Those 3 things are your best friends. And so if you're eating carbs, you always want to have one or more of those components in your meal so that your blood sugar stays balanced. I have another graph that I sometimes show, which shows you what a blood sugar spike looks like if you just have carbs. It's like this. And then if you have carbs plus protein, it's more like this, which is exactly where we want to be. So the thing I want you to take away in terms of this second bullet point is having 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. And for a snack, we want about 5 to 10 grams. So if you can take notes, that would be great. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but we want 20 to 30 grams of protein at a meal and 5-ish, hopefully like 10 if you can, 5 to 10 grams of protein at a snack. And you're like, Kaylee, well, what does that even mean? What does that even look like? I got another visual for you of what that actually could look like. So here isn't a great example. It's not mine, but I found it and I thought it was a great example of 20 to 30 grams of protein at a meal. So this could look like chicken breast, shrimp. This is okay. So they're doing grams here. So typically you're looking at like 4 to 6 ounces of these proteins. That could be tofu, that could be chickpeas, that could be yogurt. So Greek yogurt for breakfast, like a typical like cup of Greek yogurt, I think has like 15 grams of protein. So you might do that plus, some eggs on the side or, something like that. That could be 5 eggs. So if you're making eggs, we need a decent amount of eggs. There's only 7 grams of protein in an egg. So we need at least 4 to 5 to get a good serving there. That could be canned tuna. Canned tuna is awesome. It is so convenient, so fast, and so packed full of protein. So I love that if you need a good quick option. That also could be a scoop of protein powder. A typical scoop of protein powder has about 20 to 30 grams, depending on the brand. And then, it could be some ground meats as well. So you're looking at your proteins, you're looking at something like tofu or yogurt or eggs as more like vegetarian options, and then chickpeas, and then some convenient options would be tuna and whey. So think about all of these things when you're thinking about a meal. Think about, where am I getting my 20 to 30 grams of protein? So 20 grams is the minimum for satiety. 30 grams is really where we start to talk about like a sufficient amount for muscle building. So anywhere in that range is great. It's already going to be probably a step up from what you're doing. I find a lot of women are falling short in this area. So we want to have 20 to 30 grams of protein at a meal to buffer out that carb response. So an example of how you could combine these would be something like avocado toast with some salmon. So then you have your carb, you have a fat with the avocado, and then you have the salmon as the protein. So that is what we're looking for. We want to go by the mantra of no naked carbs. That's what I teach my clients. No naked carbs. We always want to be combining with protein, fat, or fiber. And I definitely recommend focusing on that protein first, 20 to 30 grams. And then also, if you have some fiber and some fat in there, that's only going to help more. So make sure you're taking notes. I know this is a lot of information. I'll drop these visuals in the group as well, so you can see. I actually think I'll find a better visual than this one because I thought it had ounces and it didn't. But those just give you some ideas of how you need to be incorporating protein in every single meal, especially breakfast. A lot of people skip that one. A lot of people have protein at dinner, right? But we're not getting that sufficient protein at breakfast. Also, if you go to the challenge recipe vault, you will see protein balanced recipes for breakfast. So there's lots of good smoothies and egg bites and stuff like that that are hitting this 20 to 30 gram range. So you don't have to come up with it on your own. It's already in some recipes for you. So the last category that I'm going to get into, point number 3 under this umbrella of food is, sorry, we have some dogs. Barking. So number 3 is nutrient deficiencies. There are certain nutrients that can definitely drive more sugar cravings than others. And so a couple of key ones that come to mind when I'm thinking about blood sugar, especially, are magnesium, chromium. I'm thinking about iron and zinc. And I also want you to think about it. If you're having specific cravings, you also want to be in tune with your body. If you're craving a specific food, I know we're specifically talking about sugar in this challenge, but if you're craving a specific food, you have to wonder, what is your body trying to tell you? So for example, sometimes in the past, I know I've craved like milk and dairy, and I'm pretty sure it's because my body was needing calcium or maybe vitamin D or something that was in those foods. So if it's a very specific food, honor that, give that to your body. But then when it comes to sugar, it can often just be that your body is looking for an energy boost. It's your body's smart and knows what's going to give it the quickest hit. And so it's typically looking for that energy boost. So tomorrow, Tammy's going to talk about, your sleep and your stress, other things that might be missing that are causing your body to search for alternative energy sources. Also thinking about coffee. I'll make sure she goes into that in the next 2 days. Coffee dependence can drive sugar cravings as well, because again, your body's used to lots of stimulation, and then it's going to look for alternative sources as well. So when we're talking about nutrient deficiencies, this is the last thing I wanted to show you guys, is a really great chart. Yes, it's talking about diabetes, but I think the concepts still apply to overall blood sugar regulation. And I just wanted to illustrate how many different nutrients go into play just for blood sugar regulation. So we're talking about things like I mentioned magnesium and zinc, and I mentioned chromium, but look at all of these others. And we're going to talk about some of these as supplements as well that are specifically really helpful. And inositol is a big one for blood sugar regulation. So I'm not going to dive into all these. Again, I'll share this resource, but I think it's just really key, or it's just really helpful to understand how a nutrient deficiency can play a role into blood sugar regulation and cravings overall. If your body doesn't have, again, if it's missing things, if it's missing nutrients, it's going to try to find sources of it. It's going to try to initiate cravings to find what it's missing. And so a couple of these, again, magnesium, I really love for cravings. We're going to talk about that more on Thursday, but magnesium I love because it just helps. It helps with blood sugar regulation, but then it just helps calm down the nervous system. Sometimes we get into cravings for emotional reasons and we just need to calm down. And Tammy's going to talk about that again tomorrow and Wednesday with habits. But we just need to turn down the nervous system and just relax. Magnesium is great at that. And then chromium is really key for blood sugar regulation. It's really important in that whole insulin physiology. And then iron, zinc, again, specific nutrients that are really helpful in that whole metabolic pathway. If those are missing, you're going to have more cravings. So a great test we can run, one that we run in our main coaching program and our Ditch to Diet program, is a micronutrient test. It's one of my favorite tests that we run. And it's a great illustration as to where your body just needs a little more help, where it is, where it's falling short, where we need to optimize. And so that's a great tool rather than just guessing and supplementing, which you can do. I like to have the data and see what we are actually missing and what your body needs. I've never seen a good micronutrient test. I've always seen it come back with some areas for improvement, even if it's just 2 or 3 nutrients. I've never seen a perfect test. So that's just a little plug for how we can get more data on this. Again, I plug in the data a lot, as you can see me talking about the glucometer and your insulin labs and your micronutrient testing. I really like to look at the data when it comes to this stuff, because we can guess all day, but when we can see the data, we can actually, when we can dig into your specific physiology, we can get a lot more targeted with what's actually going on, what's the root cause of these symptoms, these cravings, and how do we target it in a more personalized way for you. So that's where I'm going to stop today. I think I went longer than planned, but just remember, the 3 secrets to squashing cravings are food, habits, and supplements. Today we talked about the food umbrella, which was blood sugar regulation, protein at each meal, and nutrient deficiencies, which you can dig into all of those things more with labs, but those are a good starting place. If you don't know where to go, that is where we start. And so again, today and this week, we're going to be resetting our gut. We're going to be resetting our cravings and our just response to sugar by taking out all of those extra additives and just getting back to whole, real sources of food. And although this is only 4 days, I encourage you to do it longer if you can do it, because the longer you can wean off of those things, the more your taste buds will respond. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys off today. I'll see you again on Thursday for my training on supplements, and you'll see Tammy tomorrow and Wednesday for talking about habits. Bye, guys.